The one thing that I feel really strongly about, which I think comes through in all my work, is that what we need more of in chess is positivity towards women. So there is a lot of negative stuff. But if all we do is talk about the negative stuff, it's not really fair to the women who are out there kicking butt, right? I think that being positive is not just some buzzword. It's an imperative if we want to push women forward in the game.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the second episode of our special FIDE-Podcast of the Year of Women in Chess. Over the course of the next year, I will take you on a journey to meet some incredible and inspiring women in the world of chess. The podcast will be broadcasted monthly and is a collaboration between the FIDE Women's Commission, the German chess podcast Schach-Geflüster, and the Chess Sports Association. Today, we have a very exciting guest to introduce to you. Our guest is a two-time United States women's champion. She's also known for her work with US chess, and in particular for empowering females in chess. She's a commentator and writer, and her new book, Chess Queens, will be published next month. Besides being a talented chess player, she's also a successful poker player, and many of you will know her from her running her own podcasts, The Poker Grid and Ladies' Night. Today, she decided to change sides and will be a guest for once rather than the interviewer. We're super pleased and honored to welcome today's episode Women Grandmaster Jennifer Shahade. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hey, thank you so much. This is really exciting.
So Jennifer, to start off, because you're such a multifaceted person with chess and poker and arts, before we get any further into this, let me check you're happy with your introduction and I didn't forget anything crucial.
Oh, no, it was fantastic. I think you hit on so many of the major points, but it's true. I do have my hands in lots of pots, so sometimes it can be difficult for people to figure out which things to list. You know what? The truth is I have difficulty with that sometimes too. So I can't expect other people to get it right.
Okay, I think we're going through quite a few of the things today. So let's get straight into it and introduce you a little bit more to our listeners. So you're from the United States and you come from a real chess family, I'd say. So your dad is an FM, your brother is an IM. How was it growing up in a chess family like that?
Well, ultimately it was fantastic because I, like many girls around the age of 13, and not only girls, by the way, people of all genders, a lot of them around the age of adolescence, they kind of go away from chess because their parents taught them that, and then they want to do whatever is the most cool, right? So I was kind of going down that path of moving to other fields, acting, writing. And because I have a chess family, when I dipped my toe back in the water, they were able to welcome me back in, shepherd me back in. So I feel very lucky. That said, my brother and my dad, I feel like they have different minds than me, a little bit faster. I feel like I'm a little bit of a slower thinker. I will get there eventually. And I often feel that the speed of my thoughts lends itself to a lot of creativity because I'm always looking for different possibilities, but I'm not super sharp. So it's not like I started learning chess and I immediately was seeing Maiden 2 and Maiden 3. It took me a little bit longer, I think. And I always tell girls and children and grownups as well that it's not about the speed at which you get things. It's just about getting there.
I mean, it's always great to hear these things. It's always a bit intimidating to hear them from someone that has a title and stuff because it seems a bit humble, I guess. But yeah, I guess it's still motivational for people. So as you just said, you kind of I guess there was a time when you said you were more into arts and stuff like that, but then you really kicked off your chess playing career, let's say, when you got into your late teens or your early teens, I guess. And I was wondering if there was a specific event you feel that fueled your love for chess, or is it just something that developed over time or was always there and it comes and goes in waves, I get it?
I think there's two events that I would pinpoint, and being that I just, being that I just wrote Chess Queens, it's they're really vivid in my memory because I've been rereading them and I just read the audiobook for Chess Queens. There's two in particular. One was Chicago. I was pretty low rated at the time, probably around 1600. I played in a US Open, and I just remember before I used to be really sad that I was one of the only girls, but now I was at an age, I think I was 14, where it was actually kind of cool. I was one of the only girls, but that was neat. And I started to beat people who were 2,000, 2,100 in Blitz. And I was floored. I couldn't believe that I was finding this talent for the game. And I gained probably a couple hundred rating points in one event. And I had a blast. I think the second part is even more important. I won a lot of rating points and I had so much fun. And suddenly I was like, yes, I'm in. And then adding to that experience, probably about a year later, I had gained a lot of rating points and I was invited to a tournament in Brazil to represent the United States. I got kind of lucky in that I think a lot of the top women or top girls rather, were busy during that time period. Maybe it was around the holidays. So I was able to represent the United States. And wow, going to Brazil was such a formative experience because I saw what chess can give you, a vehicle to travel the world, to meet people from different cultures. And I really started to understand in that tournament that chess is not just a game, but it's also an art. I kind of fell in love with the variations. I had a trainer at the time, Victor Frias, an international master. Sadly, he's passed. And he really believed in me and saw my talent for finding creative wins. And the combination there of the experience of hanging out with teenagers from all over Latin America, like realizing that I better learn Spanish or I wasn't going to get any of the jokes. It was Brazil, but most of the players that I was hanging out with were speaking Spanish. All of that just really changed my life and made me realize that chess was a vehicle for just flow experiences and for traveling the world and meeting really awesome people.
Yeah, it's one of the things that chess is not just a game itself for a lot of people, I think, but it's like this whole experience of having like a friend group there, having great experiences, spending time at tournaments, like this whole kind of package of everything together.
Oh yeah, and I also did well in the tournament. Like I beat people who are like a lot higher rated than me. So that was also part of it. It was like just that cascade effect of chess going well and life going well and, you know, all of those things happening at once. Very euphoric.
Yeah, really cool. Now, besides playing chess yourself, you're also involved in all kind of organizational aspects. And we'll touch up on the book you mentioned already a bit later in the podcast today. But I want to talk quickly about your work in empowering women in chess, because one of the roles you have is with the US Chess. And there you're the Women's Program Director. And I just wondered what exactly this role entails.
Oh, well, a lot. So I am promoting women and girls in chess. I'm organizing events. I'm fundraising. So I'm trying to get money so that we can give grants to people who are doing projects around the country to support women and girls events. The St. Louis Chess Club has been a great partner of ours. And so we are able to give out grants to dozens of nonprofits around the country who have their own tournaments and workshops for girls. So that's our model. And then internally, we also have major national events where we'll have girls clubs and me and other grandmasters will come to talk to the girls about strategies, life skills, and also just have fun. The key thing there is the girls' clubs are held at mixed events. So it's a tournament where there might be 1,000 players, right? These big national scholastics in the United States can sometimes attract thousands of players, but maybe 20% of them are girls. So if you're from a town where there's not that many other girls that play chess, let alone your age, this is an opportunity for you to go to the girls' club and meet tons of other girls who are from other schools across the country and maybe in your exact same situation. So I love that. That is like one of my favorite events. And I think that it's worth copying for anyone listening to this because you kind of get the best of both worlds, right? The girls are still playing in the mixed events. So they're still, you know, combating with people of all genders, but then they also get to make friends with other girls at the same time. This is my favorite. And then we also have a lot of online events. I mean, that, of course, accelerated during the pandemic, but it's very meaningful to me because we've had the opportunity to get the greatest legends of the game to come and speak to our girls, from Judith Polgar to Garry Kasparov. So it's been so great. And then also incredible role models for like all that they do beyond the board. We've had Nadia Ortiz Fiona Mutesi, people who've kind of used their success in chess to bring their communities to the next level. I'm always like in awe of people who do that well. So those are other guests that we bring to inspire the girls.
And I think some of these videos are actually available on YouTube. So if anyone wants to like watch them or listen to them, even if you couldn't attend the event, like that's possible, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. They're on the U.S. Chess Federation's channel. So, yeah, definitely check some of those out. We've had Carissa Yip, Elizabeth Spiegel, who was the star of Brooklyn Castle. As I mentioned, Judith Polgar, Pia Cramling, another great idol of the game. So it's wonderful because, of course, I really miss going outside as much as I used to, going to events and traveling. But there are some benefits of online communities, so many benefits. I mean, one is that it's very helpful for people who, have the resources to have an internet connection and a computer, but don't have the resources to travel to tournaments. It's very good for people with disabilities. It's also really good for limited budget and getting people who you would never have the time to speak to us, right? So that ability to get Gary Kasparov in Croatia and Judith Polgar in Hungary to talk to our girls is really priceless. And I think, it was always the opportunity to do that, but only with the pandemic did we realize that, yes, let's do this.
Yeah, I think chess really took some positives from the pandemic and got some great speakers in. And I think when we organized some events, we also got feedback from especially women with carrying duties and stuff that said we otherwise we would have not been able to play this tournament if it would have not been online. So yeah, we totally should keep these things up. Let's diverge away a little bit from chess for now and maybe talk a little bit about your second big passion, poker. So I assume most people, like myself, played a game of poker or two in their life, but we're not really too sure what the poker world looks like. So I wondered if you could get us a little bit started in the topic by giving us a short insight on how poker is maybe organized. Are there clubs as well, world championships? How is it structured?
Well, in poker, it's very open because anybody who has the buy-in can sit down, right? Basically, all tournaments are open to anyone who can afford it. There's very few invitationals. There are some, but it's rare. And it usually intersects with casino culture. So tournaments will be held at casinos or convention centers close to casinos. And there's also the online community of poker. So it has a lot of similarities with chess. Of course, the difference is that there's almost always a buy-in. Yes, there are play money events, but with a lot of the poker tournaments that you hear about or you see on TV, you buy in. And so it carries with some glamour and opportunity. And it also carries with it some dangers. So that is kind of the attraction and the fear, I think, for many people. One of the biggest differences between poker and chess is an obvious one, but I'll state it anyway, is that it doesn't have any kids. So on the plus side, it's very glamorous. There's no topic that's off limits. But on the negative side, it's less wholesome, right? I mean, one of the beautiful things about chess is how it crosses all generations. So I think that poker and chess both have their own benefits. And one thing that struck me over the last few years is how much the games are similar to each other. Because people always ask me what's different about poker and chess. And I had so many reasons, so many examples. But lately, I'd say in the past 5 years, I really feel that the games are converging. And that's because chess has become so much more mainstream and glamorous with the Botez sisters, with Nakamura and Levy, attracting millions of viewers. These people are celebrities. No matter what major city they're in, people are going to recognize them. And that's the way poker was at the boom. So you see that chess is becoming more like poker in terms of the stars of the game. And poker is becoming more like chess because the way people study it now, they study it like a chess game. And that's actually the concept of my podcast, The Grid. They flatten out poker so that you study all the different possible hands you could possibly get in a situation, and you put it on a grid. It's looks like it's a big chessboard. It's 13 by 13. And then you're trying to figure out which parts of that chessboard your opponent could have and which ones you might have in similar situations, and seeing how they interact with each other. So it has that visual side that reminds me a lot of chess. And also, I think in recent years, chess has become more psychological. If you listen to people like Fabiano Caruana or Magnus Carlsen talk, I swear sometimes I feel like they're talking about poker because they'll talk about playing an opening because, they thought their opponent might not know what to do against it 10% of the time. And that 10% is worth it because their opponent's so strong. They want to take that odd. And I heard Fabi talk about that once in playing some variation, I think, against the Berlin. That is like, yeah, most of the time he's going to know what to do and we're going to have a draw. But that 20% he doesn't know what to do, I'm going to win a lot of those games. And that is exactly how poker players think in terms of equity.
Yeah, mental strength and like this whole like psychological aspect is super interesting because when I look at a lot of if I look at you, then you're like a super successful like chess player and like a super successful poker player. And I guess like one of the common denominators to be good at the games is that you have to be really cool in stressful situation and deal with mental like pressure quite well. And I wondered like what you would say like role like mental strength had in both sports or both games and if there is any way you train it or if you're just like naturally gifted at it.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, being calm under pressure is so important in both games, right? But in the end, whether you're calm or you're super nervous and your leg is shaking up and down, which often happened to me, it feels like you are bringing the training that you've worked so hard on to these intense moments. And you're in a flow state, whether it's chess, especially in chess, you're in a flow state. So I'm not going to say that I'm calm. I don't even really think I'm calm under pressure. You just deal with it. Wow. You channel. I mean, I think for me, other people are different, but I just channel the nerves and the stress and the emotion into positivity rather than causing you to break down. That is something I learned from poker. It's easier to work with who you are than to change who you are. So being that I'm a very emotional person, I'd rather work with my emotions to become a great poker player than to say like, no, I want to shut out all of my emotions during the game, And for instance, one way I did that in poker is I'm emotional about the decisions that I make. I want to make good decisions and not make bad decisions, but I'm not emotional about the results. So I'm able to channel the emotion into something that's pretty positive rather than being like, oh my God, they spiked the king on the river, FML. Like, no, I don't do that. And it's still something I have to work on because even being over emotional about like the quality of your decisions is very risky because you can just get burnt out. But at least it has a positive core that you're trying to make better decisions and be better.
Yeah, I actually love that advice. It's very nice to think rather than trying to change yourself properly to just channel it in something positive. That's really nice. Maybe one final question to end up on the poker part. So one of the big differences you did mention is that in poker there are of course no minors, and I was wondering, that means they have like a lot of, for example, like all their programs to get more females into the sport is like very focused on adults. Whereas I feel in chess, there is a lot of programs, but it seems very channeled towards children and girls, which is great. But I was wondering if with your experience, you would say there is some things we could learn from poker because they have so much more experience in working with adult women.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually on the board of an organization called Poker Power, where we aim to teach 1 million women poker. And we actually do teach girls as well, too. They just play for play money. And I think that you're right. Chess needs to think about how we can make ourselves more appealing to adults because it is so important, I think, to grow the game at all levels. And sometimes we focus just too much on the little ones, which is great because they're our future, right? But it's also that border of being ageist, right? So you want to promote youth because you know that they're the future minds that are going to rule the world, right? But at the same time, also people who are older still have so much life in front of them and are so valuable, and we need to also encourage them to play chess and play poker and develop themselves and enjoy themselves. And so I guess what I try to do when I'm a commentator is I try to resist the knee-jerk narrative that the young person is beating the old person, and isn't that funny because it's like a little kid beating an older person. I try to stay away from that for the most part because I think it's a bit cliched, and I think that it's important to look at it both ways because, I mean, honestly, nowadays, it's often more surprising the other way around because you can also flip that script and say, like, it's not surprising that the little kid is beating the grown-up. The opposite is surprising because the kid is able to study chess all day and the grown-up probably has a job and all sorts of responsibilities. So kudos to them. So I try to be sensitive to that because I've noticed that narrative is a bit overused.
Yeah, I think it's great that we have so many programs like supporting kids and teaching kids, and I think that should be one of the focuses for sure. But especially if I'm at chess tournaments sometimes, I mean, in a lot of ways it is still very traditional how childcare is divided, and we see a lot of like moms at the tournaments. And I always wonder, well, if we could get all these moms to play and use the time at the tournament for like playing, that would be such a big group we would reach out to, for example.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we do target some of those moms with workshops, and we try to make, like you mentioned earlier, that moms often can pop in the online events because they're so busy, whereas like a live event would be really difficult for them. So yeah, I think that is really important. One of the things that makes it difficult is that when you have limited resources, teaching kids and giving resources to kids is always going to reach more person per dollar, because it's just there's like a larger critical mass of people who are interested. So when you're reaching out to grownups and seniors, which are so important, they have so much to learn from the benefits of chess. They have so much to learn from chess, I think, and they kind of learn it in a different way. Instead of soaking up the patterns, I think they almost think about the things in their life that they love and, you know, that they're good at, and they apply that type of framework of thinking to chess, which is really interesting. Sometimes it can make it harder to improve, but it also, I think, allows them to appreciate so many things about the game and about their own minds. But the challenge is that dollar for dollar, of course, the outreach efforts are not going to be as what's the word? You're not going to reach as many people for the money that you spend. But I still think it's worthwhile because at the end of the day, those grownups are probably going to teach kids in their community, right? In their families. So it's worthwhile. And I think we got to figure out like what's the best way to balance that.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Okay, I also want to speak a little bit about your more creative projects, I guess. So one of you're also doing like art pieces, and one of them is actually called Not Particularly Beautiful. And I absolutely love the piece. And I saw that it's currently at an exhibition in the World Chess Hall of Fame in St. Louis. And I think it's a really great piece to kind of demonstrate the kind of sexism we still have in chess, sadly. Can you maybe tell us a little bit what the piece is about? So what is it all about? What is it?
Well, Not Particularly Beautiful is a piece that I created with my husband. It originally unveiled at the Boston's Sculptors Gallery with another amazing artist, Donna Dodson. And the concept of the piece is that it's a 64 square chessboard, and each square on the board is a mean internet comment that somebody said to a female chess champion or chess commentator. And they are outrageously awful comments to more benign, right? So there's like Not Particularly Beautiful, which is not like the worst thing anybody's ever said to me, but it's also just like so indicative of the way that women's looks in chess are considered primary, right? So who cares? Not particularly beautiful, right? Yeah. Like that's fine, right? It's just so irrelevant. Like imagine calling the chess queen not particularly beautiful. Yeah, like who cares? You're out there checkmating the king. Doesn't matter how you look. So it ranged from not particularly beautiful to things like should be hit with a baseball bat. So really disturbing things. And then also contradictory things like needs a makeover to wears too much makeup, showing how, you can't really win, right? You need to wear the right amount of makeup so that you look hot, but that people don't really notice it, that you're trying. So yeah, this board is filled with mean things that people said to women online. Most of them are about me and a few to other female chess greats as well, like Anna Rudolph. So the interesting thing about this piece, though, is that it has a precedent from 500 years ago. There was actually a chessboard created in just before 1500, I think around 1490, by a French engraver, artist, and it was a chessboard with an insult for the chess queen on every single square. So they said like she-devil, bellicose virago, all sorts of mean things about the chess queen. Why? Because the chess queen had just become the most powerful piece on the board. It was the mad woman's chess game. The queen turned from the weakest piece on the board that could only move one square diagonally to the strongest, which creates the beautiful game that we have today. And it's wonderful combination of tactics and strategy. But the queen was the one that made the game better. And yet she got all of the hate afterwards. And I think that is one of the most beautiful metaphors for female empowerment of all time. That women, when they step into new power, get a lot of backlash. But then when they make the worlds that they're in better, a lot of times they don't get full credit. And that's what I'm here to do. I want to give women credit for those things that they've done. Whether it's you doing this podcast, whether it's the chess queen, and of course, all of the great champions that are too often forgotten, many of whom I cover in Chess Queens.
Yeah, we'll get to the big chess queens in a second with your book. I just have one more question about the actual piece of art, because as you said, some of the insults are pretty straight into your face, but then others are more subtle statement. They're like expression like girls chess, let me see your smile, or like a hello gorgeous, which then often people say, well, I don't understand, it's a compliment. And maybe this is a good opportunity for you to phrase again why you think you included these statements nevertheless, and why you think they could be problematic, or why they are problematic.
Well, it's a tricky one, because I think we live in a world that is very obsessed with appearances and surfaces. I mean, look at Instagram, right? And I, too, am interested in surfaces. I'm interested in these beautiful social media posts and fashion and makeup. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And a lot of times becoming interested in those things allows you new opportunities. But it can go too far. And I think we see that in a lot of places in our society, but especially in places with a big gender divide, like in chess. So there's already way more emphasis on girls and women and how they look than there are on men and boys. But then you supercharge it by creating a subculture where only 10 to 20% of the participants are female. So now not only are they women who get judged more on their looks, but they're a minority. So 10 times as many people are looking at them. And so how do we balance a natural interest in self-expression and interest in how you present yourself to the world with not overdoing it and making girls and women feel that their primary value is how they appear to the world? Because that in itself is an impediment to playing great chess. You know, when you play chess, it's about what's inside your brain, what's inside yourself. And so if the emphasis is on how you look, it's going to make it harder for you to be super successful. You know, there was a great piece by Susan Polgar where she wrote about how she tried to look unattractive when she was playing at some point, I think in her teens and early 20s. And she said she did that intentionally because she didn't want to get harassed. And she didn't want people to just talk about how she looked. Of course, she's a very beautiful woman, but she tried to understate that intentionally. And, you know, I've heard a lot of women say that. And that's okay. It's totally fine. But I feel like I'd prefer that to be the case because that's just what they want to do, not because they're afraid of how they're going to be perceived or how they're going to be talked about. So it's a really complicated, vast question. And, you know, it's come up a lot in the media lately, of course, because of the controversial sponsor of FIDE women's events, the Motiva breast implants. And I think that it's something that, you know, I think about every day, and because of my work with girls. And I just have to keep thinking about it and trying to do as best as I can. Because if I, who think about this all the time and who work with girls, can't strike the balance right, then, you know, God help everyone else, right? This is like a big part of what I do. So I feel like that pressure to like set the right example that, you know, we live in a capitalist society where people care about surfaces. So I'm not going to say like, oh, you know, don't take that off your Instagram account. No, like I'm not going to hate on anyone trying to use that to their advantage. But also, what can we do that's positive to show people that what they think is the most important thing of all?
Yeah, it's very difficult to strike a good balance. And I actually don't think there is a right or wrong. It really is also situational dependent and even age dependent. Like I think, for example, when I work with girls, it's more important to really make sure the compliments they get, you know, are about their play. But then, of course, once we grow older, when we have friends, we can, of course, say, "Oh you look lovely today," you know. But like, I think there is no right and wrong, and it's a super complex question, actually.
I think you're right. I think it is very situation dependent. And that's a key thing, that there's some circumstances where it's just going to make someone's day to tell them that they look awesome because they've been working on their biceps, right? Or that their arms look great. And sometimes it's just totally inappropriate, right? And so being sensitive to that and like what's just best in each situation is a process.
Yeah. Okay, then let's move on to your, I guess, like current big project, which is your new book. So you authored a book called Chess Bitch, Women in the Ultimate Intellectual Sport in 2005, I believe. And very excitingly, your new book, Chess Queens, will be out next month. Do you want to give us a short introduction of what the book is going to be all about?
Yeah, well, Chess Queens is actually a massive rewrite of Chess Bitch. So Chess Bitch came out in 2005 and it intertwined my own story, my own coming of age story as a chess player with profiles of great chess champions and some of my impressions of feminism and gender issues in chess. And, you know, because of the success of the Queen's Gambit, I was approached by an editor and an agent, and they really wanted to bring back this book because it had so many resonant themes for this chess boom that we're experiencing now. The passion for the game, the fact that it's also not just a game to win, but it's also a game to like learn about our predecessors and to learn about how we can live the best lives we can. So yeah, they wanted to bring back the book. And at first I was a little reluctant actually, because I'm also working on another book. So I knew that it would like take my focus off that. But then when I started digging in and, you know, tackling all of these chapters in Chess Bitch and kind of refashioning them for our current world of chess, I became super excited because I do think that the great women of chess and their stories have been neglected in comparison to the importance they should hold. I think that history is so important and we need to know about Vera Menchik and Sonia Graf and even more, of course, everybody knows about the Polgar sisters, but to understand how when they stepped into the chess world, they changed everything and about all the struggles they faced on the way to becoming these trailblazers. I think the stories are incredibly important. And I was proud that this book is going to come back and hopefully influence a whole new generation of chess queens.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, going back over that book and giving it like a makeover kind of, you must have had so much thoughts on what happened also the last, like, how chess for women, like, what progressed in the last, like, 15 years? It's not 15 years, it's, yeah. So do you think much has changed since the book came out first in 2005?
Oh, yeah, a lot has changed, but maybe not quite as much. That's why the book is able to be relevant. I think not quite as much as one might expect, partly because Judith Polgar is still the strongest player in history. And so they did set that bar for the top female of all time. And at the time I wrote Chess Bitch, it was the highest, and it still is. So that's the same. Of course, we've had Hou Yifan since then. We've had Humpy Canero reach even greater heights. But I think one thing that's changed is the impression of chess, certainly in the United States. Like, there were a lot of things I had to change where in the first edition I was like, yeah, chess isn't popular in the United States. Like, what could we do to make it popular? And now I'm like, wow, it's really popular, right? So I had to kind of do those parts over again, right? Another part is actually when I talked about lookism and sexualization in chess in the first edition. I was more harsh. I'd say that my feminism was more that we should really focus on the games of the chess players, and that like mixing like modeling and glamour and chess was not the way forward. And now, of course, I'm older and wiser, and I kind of see that the criticism is not really appropriate because everybody wants to be successful. I think that now I'm just a lot more open to people expressing themselves and trying to create a business out of chess if that's what they want to do. Like you see the Botez sisters and Nemo and Anna Kramling, and they're just doing so fantastically with combining their personalities and their chess skills, right? So it's like a package deal, right? And you've got to kind of work on both and you can make a career out of it. So yeah, I think I was really proud that the book could be revived. Like I basically did surgery on the book, but that it could really be revived for a new audience. And it's a unique opportunity. I'm really grateful to like my editor and my agent because I wasn't so excited about it at first, but I'm grateful that somebody else saw the soul of the book, the bones of the book, which were very strong. Because it has a structure where I talk about the great predecessors that we have in chess, to borrow Garry Kasparov's title, right? The great female predecessors we have. Sonia Graf, Vera Menchik, Rudenko, a lot of the great Russian champions, which I didn't delve into in the first edition. I gave them much more credit in this one. And of course, the Georgian women and the Polgar sisters. The structure of the book was really strong. I think that it creates like a sum that's stronger than the addition of its parts.
Yeah. And what I very much love about the book, because I had like a sneaky preview, is actually what you just mentioned, that to compare it, like when I read the title first, and it was so much calmer now, it got from like chess bitch to like chess queens. I was like, it seems like Jennifer Shahade might have lost a bit of her heat and her confrontationness and got a bit more diplomatic. And this is exactly what you said now, because it's great chess players stories, but it's also your story on how it's intertwined with that and how your views changed a little bit. And it's nice to have the two books side by side and see how things changed since, I think.
Oh, you have both books. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying, well, yeah. And I think that, I mean, a lot of the controversy and the confrontational stuff is still in there, to be honest. It's just that I really felt very attached to the title Chess Bitch. I really love the title. But the negative of it is that it really stopped a lot of girls from reading it because girls don't really buy books, their parents do. And so if the parent's not going to buy the book because of the title, then that's kind of a drag because the book's really good. You know, it's like, I feel like Chess Bitch would be a great title if the book wasn't good because the title is good. But it like stops, you know, you need to make up for the fact if the book wasn't good, you know, I need the title like Chess Bitch to get people to buy it. But I think the book can stand on its own. I don't need that. And it turns off some people that I really want to be influenced by these great female players, these chess queens.
One question I have about the book, I'm not sure you would be able to answer it, but if you would have to choose one of the chess queens in your book that you would say inspired you the most, who would it be and why?
Oh, that's a great question. Probably, well, I'm going to not give the obvious answer, Judith Polgar, because of course she influenced me the most as a player and as a redhead. But because that's too obvious, I'm going to give you another one. Sonia Graf. She is this incredible woman, a bon vivant. She used chess as a vehicle to travel the world and to make friends, to write 2 books. She was also an anti-fascist. Like she was part of the resistance. And she was lucky enough to be in Buenos Aires when World War II broke out. So she escaped, you know, likely slaughter by the Nazis. But I'm a huge fan of hers because she really showed how, you know, it's not just about becoming a great chess player. She was the second female in the world at the time of Vera Menchik, but she always lost to Vera Menchik for the world championship. And this haunted her till her deathbed, by the way. Like Sonia Graf was so upset that she never could beat Vera Menchik in like the dozen world championships that she tried to, or maybe 8. But what I got from Sonia Graf is that she used chess to become a better person. I mean, she was able to express her hatred for the Nazis and end up escaping them. And she also used it to write multiple books and to learn Spanish, to travel to different countries. She talked about chess in such a passionate way, and that definitely influenced me. She talked about like basically the flow experience before we had that word about flow, about chess, like invading every fiber of her being, you know? And she talked about that before that was like a buzzword. So I'm a huge fan of hers. She's definitely in my list of people to come to dinner. You know, when you ask like, oh, if you could bring like 3 dead chess players back to life, who would you bring and why? And Sonia Graf is always on that list for me.
It's super interesting because actually I preferred my favorite chess quote of all times, and it goes in a similar direction. It's not from a book. It's actually a Twitter post. And it's actually a post you posted a few years ago. And it says, what if being good at chess isn't just your rating, but how well chess enhances your life? And I incredibly identify with that statement. And I do think a lot of people do, because a large bulk of chess players is not chess professionals, but amateur players. And that goes the same direction. And so I really wondered, how would you say has chess enhanced your life?
Oh, wow. Lots of ways. And thank you so much. That's a great compliment. And it's actually part of the inspiration for my next book, Reset, which is all about like using chess to enhance your life and decision-making. How it's improved my life, I think definitely the flow experience. I learned chess when I was very young, of course, and I became proficient at it in my teens and a master at 16. And I think that I got that early introduction about how it's supposed to feel when you're so wrapped up into something that all you're thinking about is that thing. And that learning that so young allowed me to understand what it's like to be in love, what it's like to be completely absorbed in writing, to be happy. You know, to me, so much of happiness is to be able to lose yourself in that flow experience. And chess taught me that, and I am forever grateful for it.
That was very nicely said. Yeah, it's just so rich what we can get out of chess. So just really quickly going back to your book. So when will it come out exactly, and where can people purchase it if now they are really interested in it?
Well, it's launching in Europe and London specifically on March 3rd. So you can buy a hard copy on March 3rd on any of your favorite bookstores or booksellers. And if you're American and you're listening to this, it will be available in a couple of independent places in March, April, including US Chess Sales, for instance, probably the Q Boutique in St. Louis. And then it'll be widely available in hard copy in June. And it's available for ebook and audiobook everywhere starting on March 3rd. And this is my first audiobook. So that was really exciting to me that they not only wanted to bring it back as a hard copy, but also as an audiobook. I learned a lot about words that I've been mispronouncing my whole life. You can hear me narrate the entire thing starting on March 3rd.
How long does it take to record an audiobook?
It took about 3.5 days. So you do about 6 hours a day, because after that, your voice gets tired. And I was really smart, actually, because I just figured, like, you know, what if I get a little sick, or what if my throat's a little dry? So I spaced it out. I didn't do it in a row. I did like a Monday and a Wednesday, and then like a Friday and a Tuesday. And that was really, really smart, because it's pretty exhausting doing an audiobook. It's hard to imagine like just talking and not having any dialogue for like 6 hours. It's harder than it sounds. I've done so much commentary with Yasser and Maurice. I've done so many podcasts, hundreds at the Poker Grid and Ladies Night. But having to talk nonstop with no break is a different animal, and your voice really starts to lose steam.
I can imagine. It must be so exhausting to stay focused for such a long time. Wow. Well, anyways, interesting. So yeah, loads to look forward to. Okay, so we have a few more minutes. Would love to discuss some more things that are going on in the chess world at the moment, or that are debated there. One of them being a Twitter debate that's going on at the moment, actually, about female titles and whether they should exist or not. And a lot of famous chess players took sides the last few days. And I was wondering, what is your view on female titles?
Well, yeah, my view on this has kind of crystallized in recent years. I actually, you asked me about chess bitch versus chess queens, and that is a major thing that's changed in my thoughts in the last 10 years that I kind of forgot. It is, when I wrote Chess Bitch, I was pretty much like on the fence about women's titles and women's events. Like I thought they were, I actually called them a necessary evil, I believe. I was like, yeah, there's so few women that we kind of have to have them, but it sucks. Like that is literally what I wrote like 15 years ago. Like now I couldn't disagree with that more. I think that I was a little gaslit into thinking that just because women were playing separately, it meant that they were admitting that they were inferior. Of course, that's not the case. There's so many different reasons that somebody would want to play with other women, with other gender minorities in the world of chess. So I kind of like flipped it and said, well, why would people want to play separately? Not why are they saying that they're worse? If you think about it, that's such an effed up way to frame the question. And, you know, that I think as an intellectual is something you have to keep working on. Like you can answer a question or you can ask, is this the best question first? And a lot of times it's better to ask, is this the best question before you answer the question? Because sometimes it's a trap. And as for women's titles, so women's tournaments, I'm all in. I'm happy for them. You know, I'll say one caveat though. I do think that at some point we need to be aware, like that we should be asking girls and women how much they like these events, rather than just always assume that that's what they want. For instance, I really love things like the tournament in Gibraltar, where they had like the battle of the genders, the battle of the sexes. So you included women, but it wasn't women only. I love ideas like that. I love creative ideas where you include women, but you also try new things. So yeah, I'm a big favor of anything that brings more women and girls into the game. So I say like, ask them, what do they want? As for women's titles, honestly, I'm a lot more mixed feelings about that. I do think that the women's grandmaster title, for instance, corresponds to like a really high rating. Most chess players can only dream of getting a rating that high. So it's a great title. Some countries, it's really difficult for women to pursue their chess studies. Having the women's grandmaster title can be amazing for their press and for their journeys. So I think hating on that title is ridiculous because it's a strong player and many women should be very proud to have the title. Okay, all that said, it is really difficult to explain to somebody what the women's grandmaster title means when you have 40 grandmasters who are women, right? So it's not something to hate on. It's a great title, but maybe we need to think from a PR point of view how to better deal with this, because a lot of people are just like cringing when you say women's grandmaster. They hate it. Like I'm especially talking like feminists who don't play chess, or, you know, kids, girls who, you know, 13, 14-year-old girls who are explaining the women's grandmaster title. They really don't like it. And if we're not getting 14-year-old girls, then we're doing something wrong. And that's why in Chess Bitch, and not in Chess Back, actually, I didn't have the right idea on Chess Bitch. In Chess Queens and also on Twitter, I have my own idea, which is to merge WGM and IM and merge FM and WIM so that you can pick which one you want to use depending on the context, right? And depending on your desire. Some people love the WGM title, use it, great. Some people, every time they use it, their friends and journalists cringe. Okay, well then use the IM title, right? So that's my suggestion. I hope one day it'll be taken up, because the one thing that I feel really strongly about, which I think comes through in all my work, is that what you need more of in chess is positivity towards women. It can't be that every time we talk about women in chess, we're talking about how the women's title is an admission of inferiority, or we're talking about how women are abused and sexualized. All that's true. I mean, not the admission of inferiority, but that they're sexualized and often the target of abuse. That is true. So there is a lot of negative stuff. But if all we do is talk about the negative stuff, it's not really fair to the women who are out there kicking butt, right? Whether it's the Botez sisters or Nona Gaprindashvili, you know, who's still playing at the age of 80, right? The first woman to earn the grandmaster title, to the Polgar sisters and their rich history. I think that being positive is not just some buzzword. It's an imperative if we want to push women forward in the game. And so we got to watch it. If every time women in chess hits the press, it's always something, you know, something negative. Like, why are there women's titles? Why are women like, you know, like just think about it. Think about it. Like, how often when you talk about women in chess, I'm not talking to you, Lilli, because I believe you are probably like right here with me. But for those listening, if you every time you're talking about women and gender in chess, you're talking about something negative, then you need to think about how to flip that.
And that's why we started a podcast to showcase like positive vibes for women in chess and like amazing women and like what they achieve and how versatile they are, from authors to amazing players to arbiters to all kind of different like roles.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and of course, when you have women on the podcast, they are going to explain things that they're not happy with or controversies. But if the core idea is that these women are rock stars, that these women are awesome, and you're trying to bring them out to the world, like that's, I think, what we need more of. But the thing is, you also need story, because people aren't going to be interested if there's not story. So it's not easy, like people aren't only interested in rah rah. There's a reason why when something's controversial, it goes viral, right? Because people want that kind of like arc of something happening and there being conflict and resolution. So promoting girls and women in chess takes a lot of thought, And now, of course, I mean, we have people of all genders. There's a greater number of people who don't identify on the gender binary, right? And so we need to make space for them as well.
I feel like the US Chess Federation is quite leading in that. You're very on top of these things.
Yeah, that's true. US Chess has a transgender policy that allows for any member to change their gender or to identify as non-binary without needing to like show any special identification, because sometimes that can be really hard. Like all that whole process can be really difficult. And we're just out here playing chess. If you feel like you need to change your gender because that's like the first step on your journey, that's great. Start with US Chess. And I've heard from people where like the US Chess identification card might be the first thing they got that affirmed their gender identity, or one of the first identifications that they got. And, maybe that could even help them as, they try to get more official documents to, change their gender for everywhere that they work and live. So yeah, I think that's beautiful, and I hope that it can be an example for other chess organizations around the world. I'm actually going to play in a charity poker event for an organization called Athlete Ally, which is all about making space for people of all genders and sexualities in sports. Because, of course, there is sometimes a lot of homophobia and transphobia in sports. Mm. And so, yeah, I think that's something that we really need to keep our eye on and do more about, because chess is for everyone. And a lot of times it's the marginalized communities that can gain so much from the game.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, we're nearly at the end of our podcast already. I have one final question for you, Jennifer. So this year was declared the Year of the Woman in Chess by FIDE, and there will be various events happening over the year. Is there anything specific you would like to see this year? Or
Yeah. I mean, now it's on top of my head. Two things, because we just talked about them. I'd love to see something about the WGM having like a gender neutral equivalent so that press could understand it better. And then also, I would really love to have some concrete steps to encourage more gender diversity in chess and to make sure that there's space for all sexualities, because that's something I think we really needed in all countries, and everybody has to feel comfortable with who they are as they play chess. And finally, in US chess, we have safe play reporting policies so that if somebody is abused in chess, they have a way to report it. I think that's also something I just like love to see more of. I mean, of course, I don't want to see more abuse. I want to see more people realize that if they are abused, there's a place to go and they know where that place is. And in the United States and all over the world. Because, I'm all about chess enhancing people's lives. So are you. So are most of us. But unfortunately, there's that small minority who are using it as a way to target individuals and get people alone. And I think we just need to make sure that we're aware of that and doing the best we can so that everybody can enhance their lives through chess.
Yeah, and feel welcome and feel comfortable within the chess society. Well, thank you very much for your input and your thought, and the interview in general was super insightful, and it was an absolute honor and pleasure to have you here on our podcast. And we're very much looking forward to your book and your next few projects. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Lilli, and congrats on the new podcast. I'm so excited for future episodes as well. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Catch you next time.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Dear chess friends, this is Michael. I am the regular host of the German Schachgeflüster podcast. I hope you found the conversation between Lilli and Jennifer as interesting and inspiring as I did. Once again, thanks to FIDE and the Chessboards Association for this cooperation. I would like to draw your attention to a workshop organized by FIDE. As part of the initiatives for the Year of the Women in Chess, Dr. Jana Krivets will offer a series of monthly workshops under the title Increase Your Inner Strength between February 27th and November 2022. Jana Krivets, of course, was the guest of the first episode of this new FIDE podcast. Registration is possible via the FIDE website, and if you're interested, please go to fide.com/news/1553. Episode 3 of this podcast will be released in March, and the interview guest will be none other than the number 1 in the women's world rankings, Grandmaster Hu Yifan from China. Take care and see you soon.